On today's show, what are the Indiana Pacers' biggest needs heading into this year's NBA draft? What are their NBA draft goals with the 7th pick, as well as a couple late first and a couple second-round picks, 5 picks overall for the Pacers? How much wheeling and dealing can we expect the Pacers to do on draft night? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all the action over at Prize Picks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Pacers, Tony East. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Pacers. And Tony, there are a lot of conflicting reports out there about what the Pacers might be trying to do or wanting to do on NBA draft night right around the corner a little bit later this week. Let's start right there. They've got options. They've got the 7th pick. They've got a couple late firsts at 26, 29. What are the Pacers' biggest needs? What are their goals kind of heading into the draft this year?
Yeah, I think that conflicting reports kind of underscores that their goals could kind of be a number of things, right? Given their current direction, because their best players, or at least their core players, Benedict Mather and Tyrese Haliburton, are really young. They're also both really good. This team was really solid until Haliburton's injury last year and would like to make the playoffs this coming season. So what does that mean? You go out and grab big talent by trading? Does that mean you draft the best need available? Who knows? But their goals are going to be a big picture for this offseason. Get some forwards, get some wings. They're so light at depth at those spots. You know, they're even going to lose some a little bit, most likely in free agency. They need to either draft 4s, trade for a 4, sign a 4, something, because that's been their biggest need for years, really since Thaddeus Young left in 2019. And no matter what direction they go following these reports, they're going to end up getting a 4 they can really stick into their lineup long term.
Let's start with what it would look like if they trade out from pick 7. So what would a deal even begin to look like? Who are some of the targets out there that make sense to flip that number 7 pick for, to be able to bring in, you know, a high level 3-4 wing type player?
Yeah, it's a hard thing, right? 7's a really valuable pick. And you look back at the history of teams trading picks, any pick in the top 10, really, it's very rare they trade a pick and get no picks back at all. Like, that's exceedingly rare. Like, Jimmy Butler was a part of a trade from Chicago to Minnesota with the 7th pick involved. And Minnesota also got the 16th pick in that trade, right? It's super rare that a team would just trade 7 for a really good player. I'm not saying the Pacers will or won't, but either way, it's going to be unique to see how they structure it. To answer your exact question, I mean, the name everybody's going to say is OG Anunoby, right? Every single team wants a guy like that. The Raptors situation has just kind of been them shrugging for like 6 months at this point. And I get why they have talent that doesn't fit. It's hard to pick a direction in that case, but Anunoby would fit really well. He went to IU right down the road from Indianapolis, and the Pacers could certainly use someone like him and could give him a bigger role than the one he currently has. Every team's going to want Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson. They would both fit the Pacers pretty well. I mean, you cover the Rockets. You've probably talked about all these players to some sort of degree this offseason as well. Like, all the popular wing-ish names who could even be remotely available, you can expect the Pacers to have some interest because they could use them.
Which one of those guys fits the Pacers the best in your eyes?
I think Anunoby's skill set probably fits the best. Like, he needs the ball a little less than a guy like Bridges, and Tyrese Haliburton's going to have the ball so much for them. So is Benedict Mathurin, and Anunoby's a wonderful shooter. He's a little more powerful on defense than Bridges. That's just kind of a made-up word, but you get what I'm saying if you watch them and the way they play. He'd fit really well, but their kind of MO of their front office in Indiana for forever has been longer contract length for these young players they acquire. And Anunoby could only have 1 year left, right? That's going to influence his trade value. So they'll have to kind of marry that up with their usual MO and their priorities and what value they want to put on him or anyone that they go after. But I think he'd be probably the best fit of anyone out there.
Longer contract length kind of points to, right, drafting another player, because if you draft a player, then you've got all the team control, you've got the favorable contracts, all that good stuff. And, we're looking at pick number 7, but then Mark Stein also reported that the Pacers might want to try and trade up from pick number 7, which is kind of like a weird concept. Just, if you're not necessarily going after maybe one of Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller, because I think a lot of people kind of have all the names after those two guys more or less in the same tier, give or take. Who are the targets either with number 7 or potentially in a world where the Pacers actually look to trade up that make the most sense for Indiana, that are the most attractive prospects to try to bring to the Pacers?
Yeah, fascinating marriage, right? And it's interesting that it's very credible reporters kind of reporting on both sides of trade out, trade up, whatever that could look like, which again kind of speaks to what I said earlier, where the Pacers will just, I think, try to get there for their 3 any way they can, right? And there's a lot of smart ways for them to do it. If they stay at 7, the two that make the most sense for them, and quite frankly, a lot of teams in the top 10, Jarace Walker and Taylor Hendricks, right? They're both wonderful team defenders who can guard their man. They bring size that the Pacers desperately need. One of them's a better shooter. One of them's got more creation upside. And Walker, it's like, however you determine what you value more is totally fine. I think neither of those are bad picks. I think they would fit any team 4 through. They'd fit any team in the NBA. I don't even know why I'm assigning pick numbers to them. If they did trade up, look, the obvious fit is Brandon Miller, right? His floor is immensely high just because he can shoot threes and play some defense. He adds size. And because he has creation upside, because he can do so many other things with the ball, valuable player, valuable prospect who would fit what they need really well. Trading up for him sounds exceedingly hard given how this draft looks like it's going to shake out. But those would be the names that I think make the most sense in the top 7, though honestly, any player would fit with them, Jackson. I mean, there's a lot of size in the top 7, and the Pacers need it.
Plus, Brandon Miller's got a little bit of Paul George to his game, so maybe some
he said
throwback.
It's his favorite player, I believe. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, some throwback flavor there, if you will. They've also got those 2 late firsts. I mean, what's the expectation for how they handle those? Should we be expecting the Pacers to walk away drafting 3 first-round selections in the draft, or are they looking to package them, trade out? What should we expect to happen with 26 and 29?
I mean, you cover the Rockets, and even them having 5 rookies last year would have been crazy. Like having 5, Pacers have 2 second-round picks, one's 32, which is good. Like they can't pick 5 players. They just can't. I don't know how they've said it on the record. That's very unusual for an office to be like, yeah, we're not picking 5 times. So I don't know what it's going to look like, whether that's, some podcasters recently floated like the Lakers maybe will trade back from 17 to get 2 or 3 of those picks, or the Nets, or whatever it could be. Maybe that means they trade up. Maybe they, in the Locked On mock draft, I traded 29 for Royce O'Neal. Like that would help the Pacers tremendously. Maybe it's just something simple like that, but they're going to move them in some way. They can't bring in 5 rookies, especially if they want to make the playoffs next year.
Will the Pacers ultimately keep their picks, or will they be wheeling and dealing on a draft night? Could we see Indiana make a splash and move up in the draft? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Pacers. Tony, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Thank you, Jackson.